Jake Mitchell had been working the field since before sunrise, just like every other day of his 18 years. The twin sons of Dust's Edge beat down on his back as he guided the old harvester through rows of amber grain that stretched to the horizon. This was all he knew. This was all he thought he'd ever know. The colony world of Dust's Edge wasn't much to look at. A few thousand farmers scattered across endless plains, growing food for the inner worlds while the rest of the galaxy moved on without them. Out here on the frontier, humans were just another species trying to get by. The real power belonged to the aliens now. They had the advanced ships, the weapons, the trade routes. Humanity just farmed and mined and tried not to make waves. Jake didn't mind the simple life, mostly. His parents had died when he was young, so his grandfather Thomas had raised him. The old man had always been a bit odd, sometimes staring at the stars like he was looking for something. But he taught Jake everything about working the land, about being self-reliant, about keeping your head down and your hands busy. Today they were breaking new ground on the eastern fields, soil that hadn't been touched in decades. The harvester's blades cut deep, turning over dark earth that smelled of iron and age. Jake was thinking about nothing in particular, maybe what he'd have for dinner, when the machine lurched violently to one side. The grinding sound made his teeth hurt. He killed the engine and jumped down, expecting to find a boulder or old foundation stone. Instead, wedged in the blade mechanism, was something that definitely shouldn't be there. It was perfectly smooth, about the size of his head, and it glowed with a faint blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The surface was covered in symbols he'd never seen before, intricate patterns that seemed to shift when he looked at them directly. Jake reached out slowly, not sure why he felt drawn to touch it. The moment his fingers made contact, his world exploded. Pain shot through his skull like lightning. His vision went white, then filled with cascading images he couldn't understand. Ancient cities that touched the clouds. Ships that moved between stars like they were skipping stones across a pond. Battles that lit up entire solar systems. And through it all, a voice, not speaking but somehow writing itself directly into his thoughts. Heir of the Forbidden Line. Bloodright confirmed. Awakening sequence initiated. Jake collapsed to his knees in the dirt, gasping. The sphere had gone dark, but the symbols were still there, burned into his vision every time he blinked. His head felt like someone had poured molten metal into it. Jake? Jake. His grandfather was running across the field, moving faster than Jake had seen him move in years. Thomas dropped down beside him, grabbing his shoulders, eyes wild with something Jake had never seen there before. Fear. Did you touch it? Tell me you didn't touch it. What is it? Jake managed to choke out. Thomas looked at the sphere, then up at the sky, then back at Jake. His weathered face had gone completely pale. We need to go. Right now. Pack only what you can carry in 5 minutes. Grandpa, what are you talking about? Listen to me, boy. Thomas gripped his arms hard enough to hurt. That thing you just activated? It's been buried here for 10,000 years, hidden and waiting. And the moment you touched it, you sent out a signal that every major power in this sector just picked up. They're coming, Jake. They're coming right now, and they will burn this entire colony to ash to get to you. Jake wanted to laugh. This had to be some kind of heat stroke dream. But his grandfather's expression was dead serious, and somewhere in the back of his mind, that alien voice was still whispering things he almost understood. I don't understand any of this, Jake said. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Thomas pulled him to his feet. I should have told you years ago, but I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd never find us out here. Your bloodline, Jake. Your family. We're not just farmers. We're descendants of something the galaxy tried very hard to forget. Descendants of what? Thomas looked him dead in the eye. Gods. Or the closest thing to them. Humans used to rule everything you can see in the night sky. And they want to make damn sure we never remember that. A distant rumble rolled across the plains. Jake looked up and saw them. Dozens of bright points of light growing larger in the afternoon sky. Ships. Warships. Descending through the atmosphere like falling stars. Thomas grabbed the sphere and shoved it into Jake's hands. Run. Back to the house. Grab the emergency pack under my bed. There's a speeder in the old barn. Go. They ran. Behind them, the first energy beams began to fall, turning grain fields into seas of fire. Jake's simple life, his quiet existence, everything he thought he knew, was burning away. And somehow, deep in his bones, in the place where that voice still whispered, he understood this was just the beginning. He wasn't just a farm boy anymore. He was something the galaxy feared. And they were coming to make sure he never learned why. The smuggler's ship smelled like burnt oil and recycled air. Jake sat in the cramped cargo hold, still shaking, watching through a small porthole as Dust's Edge became a shrinking ball of orange flame behind them. His home. Everything he'd ever known. Gone in less than an hour. Thomas sat across from him, the glowing sphere resting between them on a supply crate. The old man looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes. His hands trembled as he poured water from a canteen. Drink this. Then I'll tell you everything. Jake took the canteen but didn't drink. Start talking. Now. Thomas sighed deeply, like he was releasing a burden he'd carried for decades. What do you know about human history, Jake? Real history, not the stuff they teach in the colony schools. We left Earth about 500 years ago. Developed faster than light travel. Spread across the galaxy. Found other species already out here, more advanced than us. We're kind of the new kids still figuring things out. Jake recited it like a lesson. That's what everyone knows. That's what they want everyone to know. Thomas leaned forward. It's a lie, Jake. All of it. Humanity didn't stumble into space 500 years ago. We conquered it 10,000 years before that. Jake stared at him. That's insane. Is it? That sphere in your hands is proof. The technology inside it is so far beyond what any current species has, it might as well be magic. We didn't find it. We made it. Our ancestors, the architects, they built an empire that spanned half the galaxy. They had ships that could cross between star systems in minutes. Weapons that could crack planets. Technology that let them reshape matter with thought alone. If that's true, where did they go? Where's this empire? They destroyed themselves. Thomas's voice went quiet. Civil war. The architects split into factions. Some wanted to merge with artificial intelligence, become something beyond human. Others wanted to stay pure, biological. The war between them lasted 300 years and nearly wiped out all intelligent life in the galaxy. Entire star systems were sterilized. Species went extinct. Reality itself was damaged in places. Jake looked down at the sphere. It pulsed gently, almost like it was alive. And this thing? It's a genetic key. When the architects fell, the survivors scattered. They hid their technology, locked it behind genetic codes that only their descendants could access. Most of those bloodlines died out over the centuries. But a few remained, hidden, protected by people like me. Keepers, we call ourselves. I've been watching over you your whole life, praying you'd never have to know any of this. Why would the aliens hide this from us? Because they're terrified. Thomas gripped his knees. The species that survived the architect wars remember. They remember what humanity was capable of. They remember the weapons, the power, the destruction. So they made a pact. Bury all evidence. Let humanity start over from scratch, ignorant and weak. Make sure we never remember what we were. Before Jake could respond, the sphere suddenly flared bright. Pain lanced through his head again, but different this time. Not random chaos, but focused. Information began flooding into his mind like someone had opened a floodgate directly into his brain. He saw combat techniques he'd never learned but somehow now understood. His hands knew how to assemble weapons he'd never touched. Languages he'd never heard became clear as his native tongue. Engineering principles, physics equations, tactical strategies, all of it pouring in faster than he could process. Jake grabbed his head, crying out. Make it stop. I can't. It's awakening your genetic memory. Everything your ancestors knew, it's trying to give it all to you at once. Thomas held his shoulders. Breathe through it. Let it come. Your DNA is literally rewriting parts of your brain to handle this information. The process felt like it took hours, but was probably only minutes. When it finally stopped, Jake collapsed back against the wall, gasping. His mind felt stretched, expanded. He looked at his hands and knew instinctively how to generate energy fields, how to manipulate the fundamental forces of physics. The knowledge was just there, like he'd always known it. What am I becoming? He whispered. What you always were. What humanity always was. 3 days later, they reached the way station. It was built inside a hollowed asteroid, hidden behind sensor scramblers and old military-grade stealth fields. When they docked, Jake counted maybe 15 other ships, all beat-up smuggler vessels like theirs. The station interior was cramped and dim. About 40 people waited in the main chamber, all watching Jake with expressions ranging from hope to suspicion. These were the keepers, Thomas explained. Families who'd spent generations protecting the secret, waiting for an heir to emerge. An older woman stepped forward, her gray hair tied back severely. Her name was Helen, and she clearly wasn't happy. This boy? This is who the sphere awakened for? He's a child. He's the heir, Thomas said firmly. The bloodline doesn't lie. Then we hide him. Lock him away somewhere safe until this all blows over. It won't blow over, someone else argued. The signal went out across 3 sectors. Everyone knows now. We need to use him. Get to the vaults, unlock the weapons, take back what's ours. The room erupted in argument. Some wanted to hide Jake. Others wanted to use him as a weapon. A few suggested turning him over to the authorities to save themselves. Nobody asked Jake what he wanted. He felt the anger building in his chest. These people had controlled his entire life, lied to him, and now they were talking about him like he was a tool instead of a person. Enough. The word came out with more force than Jake intended. Energy rippled out from his body, making everyone step back. He hadn't meant to do it, but the power had responded to his emotion instinctively. The room went silent. Then the lights cut out. Emergency klaxons began blaring. Through the station speakers came a cold, mechanical voice. Station breached. Multiple hostiles detected. All personnel to defensive positions. Assassins. They'd been found. Jake heard weapons fire in the corridors. Screaming. The keepers scrambled for whatever arms they had, but most were just old people and families, not soldiers. 3 figures in black armor burst through the main door, weapons raised. Jake didn't think. He just acted. His hand shot out and a wall of shimmering energy erupted between them and the keepers. The assassin's shot splashed harmlessly against it. Jake thrust his other hand forward and pure force launched the attackers backward through the door they'd come from. He could feel the station's power grid, could tap into it, redirect it. Lights flickered as he pulled energy from every system, forming it into weapons of solid light in his hands. Get to the ships, he shouted. Go. As the keepers fled, Jake held the line. More assassins came, and he fought them with powers he'd learned just days ago but wielded like he'd been born to it. Energy shields. Concussive blasts. He could feel the metal of the station walls and bend them to his will, creating barriers and traps. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. This power, this knowledge, it was part of him now. Part of what humanity used to be. And somewhere deep inside, Jake realized something that scared him more than anything else. He was starting to like it. The ship shuddered as another blast rocked its hull. Jake gripped the armrest of his seat, watching the viewscreen as 2 more bounty hunter vessels peeled off from their pursuit. That made 7 they destroyed or disabled in the last 4 days. 7 groups trying to collect whatever obscene bounty someone had placed on his head. Approaching Akron Prime, announced their pilot, a former military woman named Beth who'd lost her family in the colony raids. She joined them at the way station, one of the few keepers with actual combat experience. Looks just as dead as the charts say. Jake stared at the planet filling their view. Akron Prime was a graveyard world, its surface cracked and scorched black from some ancient catastrophe. No atmosphere. No life. No reason for anyone to ever come here. Which made it the perfect place to hide something valuable. According to the sphere, somewhere beneath that dead rock was a vault. An architect facility that had been sealed for 10,000 years, waiting for someone with the right genetic code to open it. The sphere had been guiding them here through Jake's dreams, showing him fragments of what lay below. Ships. Weapons. Knowledge. Technology that could change everything. Thomas sat beside him, looking older and more tired each day. The escape from the way station had taken its toll. Last chance to turn back, boy. Once we open that vault, there's no pretending anymore. The galaxy will know for certain what we are. They already know, Jake said quietly. We just need to understand it ourselves. The landing was rough. Atron's surface was unstable, constantly shifting as the planet's core slowly collapsed in on itself. They set down in what looked like an ancient crater, though Jake suspected it might have been made by weapons rather than asteroids. The team was small. Jake, Thomas, Beth, and 3 other keepers who'd proven themselves trustworthy. Everyone else had scattered after the way station attack, going into hiding or trying to reach other air candidates who'd started awakening across human space. Jake stepped out onto the surface in an environment suit, boots crunching on black glass. The sphere pulsed warmly against his chest where he'd secured it. He could feel something below, a presence calling to him through the dead rock. The vault knew he was here. This way, he said, not entirely sure how he knew which direction to walk. They found the entrance after an hour of searching. It looked like natural rock formation until Jake placed his hand against it. The stone rippled like water, reforming itself into a perfect doorway that led down into darkness. Ancient symbols glowed along the walls, lighting their path. "Nobody's been down here in 10 millennia, Thomas whispered, his voice full of awe. "We're walking where the architects walked." The descent seemed to take forever. The tunnel spiraled down through layers of solid rock, but the air was breathable, temperature controlled by systems that had run continuously for thousands of years without maintenance. The engineering was beyond anything the current galaxy could produce. Finally, they emerged into a chamber so vast Jake couldn't see the far walls. His headlamp beam just vanished into the darkness. But as he stepped forward, lights began activating in sequence, spreading out like a wave across the massive space. What they revealed took Jake's breath away. Ships. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, suspended in some kind of stasis field that made them look like they were floating in thick glass. Each one was sleek and deadly, their designs both beautiful and terrifying. These weren't exploration vessels. They were warships, and they looked like they could tear through anything the current alien empires could field. "Dear God," Beth breathed. "Just one of those could conquer a system." But the ships were just the beginning. As they walked deeper, they found weapons storage, each device marked with symbols Jake could now read thanks to the knowledge the sphere had given him. Molecular disruptors. Gravity cannons. Reality anchors, whatever those were. Technology that shouldn't exist. And data archives. Walls covered in crystalline storage that contained, according to the labels, the sum total of architect knowledge. Science. History. Philosophy. Art. Everything humanity had been and known, preserved in perfect detail. In the center of it all stood a pedestal, waiting. Jake approached it slowly, knowing somehow that this was what they'd really come for. When he placed the sphere on the pedestal, the entire vault hummed to life. Energy coursed through systems that had been dormant for ages. And then a figure appeared before them, holographic but incredibly detailed. It looked human, male, wearing robes that seemed to be made of liquid light. Its eyes held a sadness that made Jake's chest ache. "Heir confirmed," the figure said, its voice resonating through the chamber. "I am the Vault Mind, custodian of this facility. I have waited a very long time for one of you to return." "What is all this?" Jake asked. "What were we?" The hologram gestured, and images began appearing around them. Cities that made modern capitals look like villages. Fleets that numbered in the millions. Humans walking between stars like gods. You were the architects. Builders. Conquerors. Explorers. You reached heights no other species has matched. You bent the universe to your will and called it progress. The figure's expression darkened. And then you tore yourselves apart over the question of what comes next. Jake watched as the images shifted to war. Human fighting human. Weapons that unmade matter. Planets cracked open. Stars extinguished. The devastation was beyond comprehension. Two philosophies emerged, the Vault Mind continued. The Ascended believed humanity's destiny was to transcend flesh, to merge with the machines and artificial minds we'd created, becoming something new. The Purists believed our humanity itself was sacred, that to change our fundamental nature was to lose ourselves. Neither side would compromise. The war lasted 3 centuries and killed 90% of all intelligent life in this region of space. What happened to them? To us? Thomas asked. Both sides lost. The Ascended merged with their technology and vanished into dimensions we cannot follow. The Purists were hunted down by the surviving alien species who feared humanity would rise again. A few escaped, their genetic codes locked into facilities like this one, hoping their descendants might one day return to reclaim the legacy. The hologram looked directly at Jake. You are that descendant. This vault, its weapons, its knowledge, I offer it all to you. Command me, and I shall help you rebuild what was lost. Jake felt the weight of that offer. With what was in this vault, humanity could reclaim its place as the dominant species overnight. No more scraping by on frontier worlds. No more bowing to alien authority. They could be gods again. But the images of the war still hung in the air. The destruction. The death. The price of that godhood. If I take control of this vault, Jake said slowly, what's to stop history from repeating? What's to stop us from tearing ourselves apart again? Nothing, the Vault Mind said simply. That choice would be yours to make. I am merely a tool. Tools do not judge how they are used. Before Jake could respond, alarms began shrieking through the vault. The hologram flickered and looked upward. We are under attack. Multiple assault ships have breached the planet's surface. The interdiction fields are failing. On the screens that appeared, Jake saw them. Sleek warships bearing the symbol of the Dominion, one of the most powerful alien empires. They were drilling through the rock above, coming straight for the vault. Beth checked her weapon. We need to leave. Now. I can activate the vault's defenses, the vault mind offered. The weapons here can destroy the assault force. You need only give the command. Jake looked at the arsenal surrounding them. He could feel the power humming through it all, waiting for him to unleash it. One word and he could prove humanity's strength. Show the galaxy that humans weren't weak anymore. Thomas grabbed his arm. Jake. Think about what you're doing. Once you start down this path. They're breaching. Beth shouted. 30 seconds. The vault mind waited, patient and impassive. The choice was his. Power or restraint. Revenge or wisdom. Everything he'd been or everything humanity had once been. Jake made his decision. Jake grabbed the data crystal from the pedestal, its surface blazing with light as it downloaded centuries of information in seconds. The vault mind flickered with something almost like surprise. You're not taking command of the weapons? No, Jake said, pulling Thomas toward the exit. We take the knowledge and we go. I'm not starting another war today. They ran as explosions thundered above them. Beth laid down covering fire as Dominion soldiers broke through the ceiling in their heavy assault armor. The vault's passive defenses activated, energy barriers slowing the invaders but not stopping them. Without Jake's command, the real weapons stayed dormant. They barely made it to their ship. As they lifted off, Jake watched through the viewport as more Dominion vessels surrounded the vault entrance. They'd have it all now. The ships, the weapons, everything he'd left behind. Thomas saw his expression. You did the right thing, the old man said, coughing. The escape had been hard on him. Did I? Maybe with those weapons we could have actually changed things. Or maybe we'd have proven them right to fear us. The data crystal sat in Jake's lap, warm and pulsing. Inside it was something potentially more dangerous than any weapon. The complete history of the architects. Their science. Their mistakes. The truth the galaxy had spent 10,000 years trying to bury. Over the next few weeks, that truth spread like wildfire. Jake hadn't meant for it to go public so fast. He'd given the data to a few trusted contacts, historians and scientists who could verify it. But someone leaked it. Within days, every news network in human space was broadcasting the evidence. Ancient records. Genetic analysis proving the bloodline connections. Archaeological data that matched perfectly with ruins found on dozens of worlds. Humanity's reaction was immediate and chaotic. Some colonies celebrated, holding rallies demanding humanity take its rightful place among the stars. Protesters gathered outside alien embassies, angry about the conspiracy to keep humans ignorant. Politicians who'd always preached cooperation with alien governments suddenly changed their tune, talking about human sovereignty and independence. Other worlds panicked. They remembered the war footage in those records, saw what the architects had been capable of, and wanted nothing to do with that legacy. We're not them, became a common slogan. The past is dead, leave it buried. But the biggest problem was the other heirs. Jake wasn't unique. The sphere's activation had awakened genetic markers in people across human space. Men and women who'd lived normal lives suddenly found themselves able to interface with architect technology, their minds expanding with inherited knowledge. Most were confused and scared. Some were excited. A few were dangerous. Admiral Rachel Cortez was the most dangerous of all. Jake first heard about her when reports started coming in of a human fleet that had appeared seemingly from nowhere. She'd found another vault, one with active ships, and she knew how to use them. Her broadcasts were direct and uncompromising. For 10,000 years, they've kept us down. Made us feel small. Made us grateful for scraps. No more. I am Rachel Cortez, heir of the architect bloodline, and I'm taking back what's ours. Any human who wants to stand tall instead of crawling can join me. Any alien government that stands in our way will be removed. Her fleet hit 3 Dominion outposts in 1 week. The aliens never saw her coming. Her ships moved faster than anything in the current galaxy, her weapons cut through shields like they weren't there. She took the outposts, freed the human workers there, and claimed the systems as sovereign human territory. She was winning. And that terrified Jake more than anything else. Thomas was getting worse. The injuries from Akron, combined with his age, were catching up with him. They'd found a small medical station willing to hide them, but the doctors weren't optimistic. Jake sat by his grandfather's bedside, watching the old man sleep. When Thomas woke, his eyes were clearer than they'd been in days. "You look troubled." "Rachel Cortez wants me to join her. She sent 3 messages this week." Jake pulled up the latest one on his tablet. Rachel's face filled the screen, confident and fierce. "Jake Mitchell. I know you're out there. I know you took data from Akron before the Dominion got there. You understand what we are, what we can be. Stop hiding. Join me. Together we can give humanity back its crown. We can make them respect us again." Thomas watched the message, then looked at his grandson. "What are you going to tell her?" "I don't know. She's not wrong, Grandpa. The Dominion has kept us down. So have the others. They lied to us, controlled us, made sure we stayed weak. Part of me wants to join her. Wants to show them what we're capable of." "And the other part?" Jake was quiet for a long time. "The other part remembers those war records. Remembers what happened when the architects chose power over everything else. Rachel, she's going down that same path. She's not building something new. She's rebuilding something that already failed." "So what will you do?" "I don't know. I'm 19 years old. 6 months ago my biggest worry was whether the grain harvest would be good. Now people are calling me heir to an empire. They want me to lead, to make decisions that'll affect billions. I don't know what I'm doing." Thomas reached out and gripped Jake's hand with surprising strength. "Good. The moment you think you have all the answers is the moment you become dangerous." He coughed, his whole body shaking. "Listen to me. The architects' greatest mistake wasn't the war. It wasn't even the technology. It was forgetting they were human. They had so much power they stopped seeing themselves as part of something larger. They thought being gods meant they didn't need anyone else." "What does that mean for me?" "It means your strength isn't in the powers that Sphere gave you. It's in remembering you're still Jake Mitchell. Still the boy who worked the fields and cared about his neighbors. Hold on to that. Don't let the legacy consume who you are." Thomas closed his eyes, exhausted from the speech. He never opened them again. He died that night, peacefully, with Jake holding his hand. Jake buried his grandfather on a small moon that reminded him of Dust's Edge. Standing over the grave, he felt the full weight of his inheritance settling on his shoulders. The knowledge in his head. The power in his blood. The expectations of millions. All of it pressing down, threatening to crush the farm boy underneath. His communicator buzzed. Another message from Rachel. This one was different. "I'm done asking nicely, Jake. I'm taking the fight to the Dominion core worlds next week. When I win, and I will win, humans across the galaxy will rally to me. I'll be building a new architect empire whether you help or not. Last chance to be part of history instead of a footnote." Jake looked at his grandfather's grave, then up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Rachel was gathering her fleet. Alien governments were mobilizing in response. Human colonies were choosing sides. The galaxy was sliding toward a war that would make the ancient architect conflict look small. And somehow, he was supposed to stop it. He didn't feel like an heir to gods. He felt like a scared kid who was way out of his depth. But Thomas's last words echoed in his mind. His strength wasn't in the power. It was in staying human. Jake pulled out the data crystal, its surface gleaming in the moonlight. Inside was the complete truth about the architects. Their rise. Their fall. Every mistake they'd made. If Rachel was rebuilding the old empire, then maybe Jake needed to build something entirely different. Something that learned from the past instead of repeating it. He opened a new communication channel, this time not to Rachel, but to everyone. Human. Alien. Anyone who'd listen. It was time to stop hiding. Time to show the galaxy there was another path forward. One that didn't require conquest or submission. Time to prove that humanity's real power wasn't in being gods. It was in choosing to be better than that. The message Jake sent out was simple, but it reached every corner of civilized space within hours. No threats. No demands. Just an invitation. My name is Jake Mitchell. I'm one of the architect heirs. I know what humanity was. I know what we're capable of. But I also know what that power cost us before. I'm calling for a summit at Threshold Station in 2 weeks. Human, alien, everyone. Let's talk about what comes next. Let's build something new instead of rebuilding something that already destroyed itself. Come with open minds. Leave your weapons and your hate at the door. The responses came flooding in. Some called him naive. Others called him a traitor to his species. But enough people, human and alien alike, said yes. Enough to matter. Threshold Station was neutral ground, built centuries ago as a trading hub where all species were supposed to be equal. It orbited a dim red star in unclaimed space, far from any government's direct control. The perfect place for an impossible conversation. Beth helped Jake prepare, though she clearly had doubts. You know Rachel's going to see this as a challenge, right? She's not going to just let you undermine everything she's building. I know, Jake said, watching ships arrive through the station's viewports. Vessels from a dozen different species, their designs all unique. But I have to try. The summit hall filled slowly. Humans who wanted peace sat across from Dominion representatives who still saw them as a threat. Other alien species sent diplomats, scientists, military observers. Everyone was tense, hands never far from concealed weapons despite Jake's request. Trust was in short supply. Jake stood at the center of it all, feeling incredibly small. He prepared a speech, but looking at all these faces, all this history and hurt, the words felt inadequate. He started anyway. 10,000 years ago, my ancestors nearly destroyed the galaxy. They had power beyond imagination, and they used it to tear each other apart. Billions died. Species went extinct. And when it was over, the survivors made a choice. They decided the best way to prevent it from happening again was to make sure humans never remembered what we'd been. Murmuring rippled through the crowd. Some angry, some agreeing. I'm not here to tell you that was wrong. I've seen what that power can do. I felt it in my own hands. It's intoxicating and terrifying. But hiding the truth didn't work. The heirs are awakening. The technology is being found. The choice now isn't whether humanity remembers. It's what we do with that memory. A Dominion general stood, his forearms crossed in a gesture of contempt. And what do you propose? That we simply trust you won't repeat history? Your kind Rachel Cortez has already killed thousands of our people. She's proved exactly why you were kept ignorant. Rachel made her choice. I'm making a different one. Jake pulled out the data crystal, holding it up so everyone could see. This contains everything. The complete archive of architect knowledge. Science that could advance every species here by centuries. Medical technology that could cure diseases you've struggled with for generations. Clean energy. Faster ships. All of it. The room went silent. I'm offering to share it. Freely. With everyone. No conditions. No human empire. No conquest. Just knowledge, given openly, so we can all move forward together. The hall erupted in chaos. Some shouted in approval. Others accused him of being a fool. The Dominion general looked like he'd been slapped. This is a trick. There's always a price. The price is that we stop repeating the same cycles, Jake said. Humans aren't gods. We never were. We're just one species among many, and we're stronger together than divided. That's what the architects forgot. That's the mistake I won't make. Before anyone could respond, the station shook violently. Alarms blared. Through the viewport, Jake saw them. Sleek architect warships dropping out of faster-than-light travel, surrounding the station. Rachel's fleet. Her face appeared on every screen in the hall. Sorry to interrupt your little peace party, Jake. But while you've been playing diplomat, I've been winning. I've taken 12 systems. My fleet grows stronger every day. And I'm done letting alien governments dictate humanity's future. Her ships powered weapons, targeting systems locking onto the station. Stand with me or stand aside. Those are your options. There is no third path. Jake felt the power inside him responding to the architect ships, recognizing them, wanting to connect with them. It would be so easy to reach out, to take control of Rachel's fleet with his genetic authority. The Vault Mind had taught him how. He could override her command and end this immediately. But that would just prove her point. That power decided everything. That the strongest heir should rule. Rachel, Jake said calmly, if you fire on this station, you'll kill humans and aliens together. You'll prove to everyone here that the architects learned nothing from their mistakes. Is that really the legacy you want? The legacy I want is humanity standing tall instead of crawling. Something you're too weak to understand. It's not weakness to choose peace. It takes more strength to put down power than to pick it up. Rachel's expression hardened. Then you've made your choice. And so have I. Her flagship's main cannon began charging, energy building to devastating levels. People in the summit hall screamed, running for escape pods. But Jake didn't move. He closed his eyes and reached out with the abilities the sphere had given him. Not to seize control of Rachel's ships. Instead, he connected with the station itself, with its old but functional systems. He rerouted power, raised every shield the station had, and broadcast a message on frequencies only architect technology could receive. To Rachel's fleet, he transmitted the complete war records. Not just the battles and victories the architects had won, but the aftermath. The extinction. The grief. The endless cycle of revenge that had consumed them. He showed Rachel's crews what that path led to, where it always led to. The flagship's cannons stopped charging. Ship by ship, Rachel's fleet began to stand down. Her crews were seeing the truth, and they were choosing differently than their commander wanted. Rachel's face on the screen twisted with rage and something else. Betrayal. Confusion. What did you do? I showed them who we were. All of it. Not just the power, but the cost. They're making their own choices now, Rachel. Just like you can. For a long moment, Rachel just stared at him. Jake could see the war inside her, between the power she'd embraced and the human she'd been before. Finally, she spoke, her voice quiet. You really believe this will work? Sharing everything? Trusting them? I don't know, Jake admitted. But I know the alternative doesn't. We tried it before. It failed. Maybe it's time we tried something new. Rachel's image flickered and disappeared. Her fleet began jumping away, ship by ship, until only her flagship remained. Then it too vanished into faster-than-light travel. She hadn't joined him. But she hadn't destroyed the station either. It was something. Jake turned back to the assembled diplomats, who were slowly returning to their seats, shaken but alive. So, who wants to help me figure out how to share 10,000 years of technology without breaking everything? The work that followed was harder than any battle. Committees were formed. Safeguards discussed. Arguments broke out daily about what knowledge to share first, how to prevent misuse, how to verify trust. It was messy and frustrating and slow. But it was happening. 6 months later, Jake stood in a newly planted field on Dust's Edge, or what remained of it. The colony was being rebuilt, this time with a mixture of human and alien volunteers. The scars from the attack were still visible, but new growth was emerging. He turned down a dozen offers to lead various movements, to become a spokesperson or symbol. Instead, he'd come home. Or what was left of it. Someone had to plant the fields. Beth found him there, dirt under his fingernails, looking more like the farm boy he'd been than the heir he'd become. They're asking for you at the council. Something about energy distribution protocols. Tell them I'll review it tonight. Right now, I'm busy. Saving the galaxy through farming. Jake smiled. Something like that. Grandpa always said good things grow slow. Can't rush it. Above them, a mixed-species cargo ship passed overhead, carrying supplies for the reconstruction. Human and alien crews working together. It wasn't perfect. Tension still existed. Rachel was still out there somewhere, building her own version of humanity's future. The Dominion hadn't forgiven or forgotten. The road ahead was long and uncertain. But it was a road they were walking together now, instead of as enemies. That was something. That was a start. Jake turned back to his planting, feeling the soil between his fingers. He was still just a farm boy in a lot of ways. Still figuring things out. Still making mistakes. But maybe that was humanity's real strength. Not the godlike power they'd once wielded, but the ability to learn, to grow, to choose something better than what came before. The sphere sat in a secure vault now, along with the other architect relics they'd recovered. Humanity's inheritance, preserved but not worshipped. A reminder of what they'd been and what they'd chosen not to be again. The twin suns of Dust's Edge set on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. Tomorrow Jake would meet with the council. Tomorrow he'd review distribution protocols and mediation requests and all the complicated work of building a new kind of galaxy. But tonight, he was just a farmer, planting seeds in soil that had seen too much destruction. Betting on growth instead of power. Choosing the slow, steady work of building over the quick satisfaction of conquest. It was the most human thing he could do. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough.